Alright, today is August 16th and I'm doing a late garden tour. It's like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, 1:30. But the baby is asleep, and so I thought I would just talk about herbs, the herbs that I have in my garden. I did do a harvest of the elderberries and some tomatoes and all of that stuff I've been doing. So I'll show you a little bit of that, but I do want to show you the clean out, sorry my cat, the clean out of the garden we did yesterday, and then just talk about some of the herbs we have growing as well. So, yeah.
Say hi, Smokey. You say hi? You say hi?
All right, let's go. So to introduce the herbs that we're growing in the garden, this one is called Boneset, and it has a lot of company right now. Little ants and I think that's a wasp, so try to stay away from it. But this plant, not only it is quite difficult to grow, so I'm actually very surprised that I have this many actually growing in this pot. Germination was very sparse, but I grow Boneset just because it is really, really good for colds and flus. So the leaf or the flower, when dried or used fresh, can be placed in a tea. I'm pretty sure there's a recipe out there somewhere for a tincture of some sort, or even maybe a balm, but it is really, really good for colds and flus. And even chest congestion. So Boneset, and right now this might be about a foot tall, and I read that it can actually get up to 3 feet tall. And I'm thankful that it's going to seed, because these seeds are kind of expensive. I got them from Strictly Medicinal Seeds. And yeah, so I'm really, really hopeful to have some of this next year. This is my cinnamon basil, which kind of looks a little blighty. It needs to be cut back and fertilized, given some nitrogen. But I actually just cut it daily for teas. What you want to do is actually take these flowers off so that the plant can produce more offshoots. But it's delicious, it smells heavenly, and it's really good for, like, if mixed with lemon balm and mugwort. It is really, really good as a sleep aid, but also just to calm you. And it has some effect on blood pressure as well. That much I've actually tested on myself. So that's been pretty well. Oregano I grow for the bees. I don't have really a use for it yet, but I do know if you can get the oil out of it, it is really, really good for, if mixed with camphor, for breathing issues, like asthma and allergies, which is what I have a lot. Over here is my second year lemon balm that overwintered. It actually overwintered in the ground. This is the first year I actually have it in a pot. And I was picking it, but obviously not enough, because now it's starting to flower and the taste has changed on it because it's flowered or bolted. I was going to cut this all the way back, but with the taste gone, we'll probably just let it seed. And then just collect the seeds for the winter. For next year's planting. Lemon balm's amazing because the one reason why I did grow this is because it helps with cold sores or fever blisters. So if you get those, if you eat the fresh leaf as soon as you feel the blister coming on, it reduces the healing time, or it may take it away altogether if you catch it in time, like really, really early. So I always keep it fresh or dried in the house, especially in the winter. But it's also really, really good for colds and flus, and also helps to relieve stress and tension. So it's really, really good if mixed with chamomile or mugwort to help with sleep. And then this is peppermint basil. It's chocolate mint. And this is like the best mint to me. It doesn't have like a weird, I don't like the mint taste in teas, but this is really subtle. And I don't know why they call it chocolate mint, probably because of the brown stem, but it's delicious. So I have it growing in 3 different places. And peppermint is just good for anything, really. It's good for like stress, to relieve high blood pressure. It's a good sleep aid. It does stimulate milk. And I haven't read that in a book, but when I was nursing my baby, peppermint seems to help with that. But maybe because it helps to like reduce stress levels. So there might be something with that. This is a toothache plant, which I brought just from the appeal of having it. But apparently this thing will numb your entire mouth, just one, if you chew it, if you're having tooth issues. So I just thought it would be good to have in the house. And it's going to seed, which is great because these are kind of expensive. I brought most of my medicinal herbs from Strictly Medicinal Seeds. I think a very small pack of toothache plant was like $3, I think, when I brought it. It's probably more expensive than that. It does not like frost, so I almost lost it when we got that freak frost storm in April. And it's kind of difficult to germinate. It's kind of like chamomile, just because the seeds are so tiny. Yeah, the seeds are tiny, so it's kind of hard to germinate it. But it's good to have. It's really good to have, even if you never use it. It's just good to have it on hand. So I'll always grow it. I'll always grow that in Boneset with the hopes that I will never need to use it. This beautiful flower over here is Feverfew. It kind of looks like chamomile, but it doesn't have the tropical punch smell to it like chamomile would have. But Feverfew is actually really, really good for colds and flus. So if you were to mix this with lemon balm and mugwort, or just lemon balm by itself and yarrow, you would have a really good tea to help boost your immune system. And I've tested it out. It actually does work. You can actually use the flowers or the leaves. What I do is I use them fresh now, but I have some drying in the house, just in a paper bag. So it's really, really good. And then we do have some that are drying up. So that's great because I have seed for next year. But I'll probably never really get rid of this once it's in the pot and it's already gone to seed. But yeah, it's really good. I also brought these from strictly medicinal seeds as well. This over here is a yarrow that needs to be watered and desperately needs to go on the ground. So I'll do that. I purchased this one from a local nursery. But yarrow has many medicinal factors. And look, we have some seed too. This is a purple, light pink purple yarrow. Most of my yarrow I've actually dug up from a park for free. But before I knew where my source was, I actually purchased it from a nursery. Just because it's like a great medicinal herb. If you're going to start a medicinal garden, you have to have yarrow. You would need to learn how to recognize it. So if you don't know how to recognize it, maybe go to a nursery, purchase a plant, and then see how the plant looks so you can see it in nature. There are two plants that look almost exactly identical. The first is hemlock, which is a deadly type of plant. None of the plant can be consumed. And then the other one is Queen Anne's lace, which parts of it can be consumed, but it doesn't have the same medicinal effects as yarrow. And maybe I'll do a talk about that later if anyone's interested, but you can also Google it. Yarrow in particular, once you've identified it, with the individual fern leaves coming out of the stem, and a little flower head when it does open. But the leaf is what you use, and the leaf is really astringent, it's really bitter. But you can chew this directly if you have any cuts or wounds or sores in your mouth. You can also chew it, kind of spit it out and place it on any open wound. It'll automatically stop the bleeding. The same as plantain would do that as well. You can also add it to any type of tea if you have a cold or a flu. And this it will help bring down bring down a fever. It will also help you dramatically just feel better within like a day if you mix it with lemon balm. So it's a really good plant to have. You don't need much of it. You really only need a leaf. Also, non-medically, but if you add one leaf to a pile of compost, it does help speed up the composition of the compost. So that's also good to know. So yeah, yarrow. We have lavender, which does not flower the first year. It flowers second year. And I do believe it will go through a frost pretty easily. So I'm going to test that theory. I will take it out of the pot in the winter and put it in the ground. Just split them up. And then hopefully we have some lavender flowers next year. Inside of the garden, we obviously have our elderberry, which has a ton of medicinal qualities. Elderberry I dry mine and I make an elderberry tincture. Some people make it, you can make it with vodka just as a preservative. And there are tons of recipes. Or what I do is I dry the berries and then I turn them into a powder and I make teas in the winter if I feel ill. Just be mindful you do not want to eat the elderberries raw. I tend to stay away from anything that turns purple like this in the stem. That's not a good sign for raw eating. Too much of these can have poisonous effects, and it's also a high laxative. So if you eat too many of these, you'll be in the bathroom for a minute. But it's highly, highly beneficial. Can help do wonders if you have colds or flus, or just are feeling kind of icky. So it's a great plant to have. It just spreads like crazy, so you're gonna need to have the space to grow elderberry. But it doesn't seem to mind where you put it. That area doesn't normally get a lot of water, and it's growing just fine. So this is Moringa, and Moringa is kind of one of those, I think it's a tropical plant, so I know it's not going to survive a winter. I will have to put this in the garage, but what you do is you cut this down to the stem and then overwinter it, and then if it does come back, you'll have a bigger, bushier plant. But Moringa is kind of one of those super plants. You don't need a lot of it, but what I do is I actually make this into a tea. So you can dry the leaves, powder them, and make them into a tea, or you can actually eat them fresh. But they are supposed to actually fill in the gaps for a lot of nutrients that you might be missing. So if you're feeling fatigued, a Moringa tea is not a bad thing to take. Or stressed, if you're having colds or flus, Moringa is pretty good for that too. So I have a plant here, and I have a plant over there. And then in the garden as well, outside of my euthanasia, which hasn't come up yet. But the root of euthanasia is really good for quite a bit of things. Over here is my Tulsi, which is a basil. A beautiful basil, and the scent is like drinking a perfume tea. That's what I normally use it for. I use it for teas. But let's see, I have one here, which is behind these zinnias, and the bees are kind of mad at me for being in their spot. So let's see if I can find my other patch without breaking anything. But so here's my other patch, one of 3 patches of Tulsi. Tulsi is a basil, so you have all the effects you would have of basil. It's supposed to be very calming. Does wonders on high blood pressure as well, as long as you are actively modifying your diet to take out your salts and your red meats and everything else that's on the no-no list for high blood pressure, and reducing your stress levels. But if you can do that, Tulsi is really, really good, as is all basils. You can make basil teas. You can cook with it. This one in particular, you don't cook with. For me, it would not be culinary. I use it strictly for tea. But I do know that if you mix it with chamomile, it's great for just sitting and just calming. Like, it has a really great effect in doing that. So I do recommend holy basil. There's a ton of other health benefits for holy basil as well. I don't know them all by by memory. But if anyone's interested, I'll look up the information and just do a separate video on holy basil or Tulsi. Along the way, I did pass up a few other herbs. I knew I dropped an okra. Look at this. I don't think this is going to be any good. I picked this a couple of days ago. Oh, wonk wonk. Oh well, something will eat it. This is stinging nettle. So I haven't cut it down yet. I need to wear gloves. But it's really, really good for colds or flus. So if you're sick, get stinging nettle. You do not want to eat this raw. It's called stinging nettle for a reason. I think that going down it'll have the same effects as poison ivy, so you don't want to have that in your belly. But if you process it, so if you dry it or boil it, it takes that sting out, and then you can actually make a really good tea with it. St. Johns Wart is also really good for colds and flus, and has a bunch of other medicinal qualities, all of which I have not memorized. So I'll definitely look that up and get back with you guys. And it's flattened because the squirrels used to sit here and eat the ground cherries that used to be here before I pulled them out yesterday. Where else? Let's see, I have 2 more. I kind of scatter my herbs throughout the garden. I don't feel like I need to separate them out. This is, where's my tag? Hissop. And it's flowering now. It's going to seed, but it's only a first-year plant. But Hissop's also really good for colds and flus. So a lot of what I've actually grown this year is actually for colds and flus, to help with that type of thing, just because of what's going on in the world right now. I feel like we do need to be more up to date on the things that will cause our bodies stress, and also what can heal our bodies if all else fails. So I try to grow my own medicines. All right, so this jungle here, this is the front yard, is actually Mugwort. And the prior owners of this house actually planted this. and I let it stay. It's also called Mother's Wort. But I've let this stay, and I don't water it, I don't fertilize it, and it grows back every year. I actually cut this down, and it has grown tremendously. It's going to seed now. But Mugwort or Mother's Wort is actually a powerful hallucinogen. Some people smoke it, some people dry it and sage the house with it or smudge the house, and it's supposed to promote like really vivid dreams if you smudge your room. You can dry it and stuff your pillows with it for a great night's sleep. Not the most fragrant of plants, but it does work. Me personally, I actually use it for teas. So I'll dry it, I'll mix it with lemon balm and cinnamon basil, and it makes a very powerful sleep aid. And that's really gentle, but you'll wake up fully refreshed, and you don't need any more than about 2 leaves of this stuff. You'll know that it's mugwort because of the silver leaf, the silver color on the back of the leaves. Here. Yeah. Well, those are the herbs. Sorry that this was a long video, but I'll make a listing of the herbs below. This is my 3rd year actually growing medicinal herbs, and I highly recommend it for any gardener. The website I use was strictly medicinal seeds for the vast majority of my herbs, but I also just went to my local nursery and found some plants. Thank you so much for walking with me through the garden and looking at my herbs. And you guys have a great day.